Not back here. You're seeing the email I just forwarded?
Yeah.
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 Dave, can you hear us?
Good morning.
I can hear you.
Yo, Dave. Can you hear? Oh, there you go. Thank you for the message. We're good to have there.
Oh.
All right. So that's the same problem we have.
John, like I said, here last night or after the service. That's what he worked on.
Can you hear me at all?
Can we hear Dave is gonna be the question.
Can't hear Barbie. They look like she was talking.
Yeah. We'll be
Can I hear
right
Dave?
So they can hear us. We can't hear them.
Oh, Barbie, you can hear us?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But Dave cannot hear us.
I'll be right over.
Can't hear you. Barb must be on her way.
Oh, yeah, let's.
Barb to the rest.
She's with us all week.
Did you shoot a message? Dave asked him if he wants to, if we can call in and just put him on voice. Call me.
Or my phone.
Yeah, somebody's.
I don't know what question she's saying. Not usually. So every once in a while.
How are you? Just happy to be here.
Every day. Right? You know.
Yeah, it's
You
fine.
know, it must be a victory of
You can
vocal
call me.
experience that I've done this job for 24 years. Every day. And I think, oh, I wake up so hopeful.
Did you get your hair cut? You got layers, didn't you?
No, it's
Yep.
dry.
It did, thank you.
Oh, I did get layers.
That's cute. I like it. I haven't seen you in a while.
That's good. No one really wants to see me.
Ever. Stop.
No one really ever wants to see me.
I like to see pretty much.
So I went to my girls are gone to college, my son, I cannot, they're both like,
Every day, like chicken.
they teach me how to play Fortnite. My son's like, oh God. It's gonna be summer, it's gonna be.
It's on the top.
It was like, you're playing. And he's like, I gotta go, you know, he's 18, I gotta go
I've got a rip.
referee, flag football for the 5-year-olds.
We're gonna give Dave just another minute here, see if he can
Which
get
one
logged
we
in,
going?
called in.
He's like, you're going to watch me pass 5-year-olds, right? So I'm like, I don't care. I have nothing else to do, literally. So I go to the gate with all these little kids and I'm just looking through the crowd and everyone's like,
Elected by you guys that are standing.
why is she here? Because I don't have any little kids there, right? It's like, why is she here? And it's a
Fear of God is instilled in everyone.
kids in it, and I was like, I'm gonna
Bunch of next year.
in the interior. No one wants to see me.
I are also, I just watching to see. It's gonna be
Okay.
like, oh, what did you, oh, what did you do wrong? Oh, what did you do wrong? Don't you get that same play?
That guy yesterday.
All right.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, it's working. Dave, can you hear it? Dave may need to update his iPad. Because I know that there's an update on Cisco.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Dave, we can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Awesome. All right. Here we go.
Just so you're aware, Mr. Chair, I am in a spot where I have to be gone at 10 again today, like last month, so.
All right, thank you very much. Hopefully, yeah, thank you. All right, so let's get started. If we could do, Randy, if we could have a forum, roll call, please.
Manning.
Here.
Woodhouse.
Here.
Turk.
Yeah.
Hasbro.
Here.
Frank.
Here.
Severson.
Present.
And Fleming. Here. You have everybody here, sir.
All right, thank you. Item number 3, verification open meetings law compliance. Everything's been posted properly.
Yes.
Thank you. Approval of agenda. Looks like we have a 16-point agenda. Any comments or looking for a motion to accept that? Chad moves, seconds. Thank you. All in favor? I'm sorry, Fleming.
Aye.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Agenda is approved. Approval of minutes of August 2nd. Item number 5. We've all had a chance to look at that, and and we're able to approve those minutes. Fleming motion, looking for a second.
I'll second.
Woodhouse seconds. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Gotta slow down a little bit, don't I? Little delay in the system. All right. All right. That is approved. Moving on. Public comment. Item number 6. Any public comment? Any public comment? Anybody online or anybody in the room? More time on public comment. Hearing none, moving on to item number 7, reports. Sheriff, start.
Yeah. So, monthly report, we had $41,517 in vouchers, 65 jail bookings for the month of July. Why don't I was there on the meeting. Sorry. That would, give me one moment here and I'll get you the correct report. Nope, that's the report.
So the one that's listed on our document is
Is the,
July,
it shows, mine shows,
May, June, and July.
yeah. Let me see, I have. It in one other place here. All right, so I've got May, June, and July. So,
Which would be the same one that we had last month.
which I'm assuming is the same one I reported last month. So, I guess I will skip that for this month and kind of just go right into the rest of what I wanted to talk about. So following the last email, I sent out the committee kind of an explanation of what my big ask was for in my budget, which was an additional patrol deputy. And so the budget increase was pretty minimal. That isn't due to what is really a temporary thing, which is the reduced insurance costs. I have a lot of people who are below 26, many of them who are well below 26, and probably aren't going to take our insurance for a while. So there's quite a bit of savings in that on our end. And so that allowed us to fund the position with a minimal increase. So after we submitted the budget, the request came from Candace's office to apply a wage increase to that. So we applied the wage increase, which then put us a little bit higher above our 2024 budget. So at this point, with the position, with the requested wage increases, I'm at $44,800 above my 2024 budget, which is a 1.1% increase. So that's wage increases across the board, all that included. And I know it's not zero, but it's with giving everybody a wage increase, it's 1.1% increase. So, so the primary purpose of this position again is to cover the court security, which is a mandated function of my office, statutorily mandated function of my office. So the position will also, in addition to that, provide us extra coverage on the weekends. So what my plan is to do is not just make it a court security function, they'll actually work patrol as well. So the way our schedule is, you work 2 days on, you get 2 days off. You work 2 days on, you get 3 days off. So every other weekend is a 3-day weekend, or every other weekend you work it's a 3-day weekend. So currently our rotations are lopsided. We have 2 rotations. One rotation has 1 more deputy than the others. Filling this position this way would then even out those rotations. So our day shift would be 4 deputies in a perfect schedule, no vacation, no sick leave, 4 deputies on day shift. One of those deputies would be assigned to the courts Monday through Friday. On the weekends, they would be extra coverage on the weekends to help reduce transport costs, reduce the chance of overtime, and just help with additional patrol coverage. Weekends are historically our busiest time. Friday through Sunday, we see our highest call volume per day. So, so that's the reason why I figure we get kind of an added benefit. We cover the court, which we have to, it's a primary function. We also have that additional buffer on patrol. I guess to talk a little bit more on that, and I've hit this point probably for the last 3 or 4 years. We lost this position in 2010. It wasn't a court security position then, it was a patrol position. If you look at our call numbers from 2010 to 2019, we're up 20%. Again, I'm not planning on using this for patrol. It's going to have a little added benefit for patrol, but not primary. It's not its primary function. Comparing 2019 to 2023, we're up another 11%. From that time period, we had an 11% increase. So, I mean, our call volumes not went down since we lost this position. It's only went up, and it ebbs and flows, right? Things go up and down year to year, but it's only increased. So, my hope is, I'm struggling to cover more, basically is the gist of this. But also, we do need the additional coverage on patrol as well. And I'm hoping I can see kind of the best of both worlds come out of this, where I have stability for court security, and then I have an added buffer for patrol. Yeah, I mean, I can go on a little bit more about how we've been struggling in court, but we've been between the court and additional transports we've been seeing, which are really as a result of court. I've been sending, patrol in the courtroom has been regular. The investigator in the courtroom, the cover court, has been a common occurrence. And now admin is also going into court to help cover court. In addition to now we're kind of pulling all those people and having them do transports now too. So.
And I can just say that the court now requires in-person, defendants be in person for what's called the final status. So we can't use Zoom for that. So for instance, we have a date coming up. I don't know if it's next week because I don't do the transports out of my office. I don't do the paperwork, but we have 3 coming from prison on the same date and they're not at the same prison. So they're required to be here from the court. We can't move those court dates because it's the final status and right. So transport doesn't just mean one guy goes here. It means we have multiple people that have to go and sometimes on the same day. So I know we have a 3-person transport.
Yeah, that's probably the day that Aaron is doing the transport for us.
That we have our chief deputy.
So, so I mean, that's kind of what we're running into. and again, this stuff kind of ebbs and flows too, but lately it seems that the norm has been more transports than we're used to,
Was it
than we're
change,
accustomed to.
changing what the court's doing?
Yeah, yep. So, and it's for those reasons that I'm asking for this position. And I'll say I'd asked for the position just for patrol for the last few years. Do I need it for patrol? I do, but I need it for the courts more. So, and that's why I'm asking for it. So switch gears now. That's my plug for my budget. Little more exciting news. So we have a group of people down in Indiana right now, and we're selecting our next canine today. So, we had Rambo who retired in June. So now this will be Rambo's replacement. So they're down at, Fond Lake Kennels in Indiana. And actually, I just got pictures sent to me of a dog, which I'm assuming is our next dog, but I haven't confirmed that yet. I don't know yet. There might
No
be,
Rambo.
there might be a fun little Facebook game
Okay.
on that.
No,
So,
no Rambo,
Yeah.
tell your people, no Rambo. That's been the trend.
all right.
Or I don't want to say you sent Rambo after the dog. You sent Teddy after the dog.
Yeah.
Teddy.
Send puppy.
Yeah, Teddy, right? We
Anything
sent
but,
Rambo.
yeah, anything but.
That's been the change.
And I guess just to talk on that just a little bit longer, just for those of you who aren't aware, because it's been a few years since we got a dog, that's all completely donated funds. So, the last dog we paid for came out of a grant that I wrote. It was funded by a private entity, private person who made a large donation to the Sheriff's Association. That money was then refunded by the state after we got the last dog. So kind of, we're still playing with that same pot we got from that original donation. So, yeah,
What's the average years of service these dogs do?
it depends, 8 to 10 years. So Rambo was 10 years old, or just about 10 years old when he retired, and we had had him since I think a little before 2 years old.
Longer than I thought.
Yeah, so, and it depends, it's all, kind of like people, they're all individuals, and some last longer than others. And, but yeah, 8 to 10 years is a pretty good ballpark. Some less,
I think they slow down.
they do slow
I
down.
mean, they do,
Yeah.
they do slow down, so I don't know that 8 to 10 is.
Jumping in and
I don't
out of
know.
squad cars, they get
Right,
arthritis.
they get hip dysplasia, I don't know, stuff like that.
All right. So I guess, let's bounce back to your first question then. Discussion with the budget and the position.
Yeah.
So I want, first of all, committee questions on that. I know that the initial budget turning in does not include that.
Correct.
That's what we're
Um,
discussing. Right.
So, and I've been very clear with the sheriff on this. In the executive committee discussion, I was very clearly told no new positions in the budget. For the reason of until the wage study comes back, and we know we can pay the people we have. They did not want the corporation council, on staff in the budget. And they did not want any new positions in the budget. So for that reason, I have not included new positions in the budget. So what we will present is basically a side by side. So here is the budget without the position. Here is the budget with the position, and what the sheriff provided me, Larry and I should say, is there's a spreadsheet right here that lists out where they cut and what they cut to get to the savings. So
Where the sheriff's department cut?
yes,
Yeah.
so with this plan, one of the sergeants would drop down to a patrol deputy rather than be a sergeant. That would be a reduction of $2,246 a year. That's, again, a travesty that the sergeants make only $2,246 more than a patrol deputy, first of all. Then $12,000 in court security pay that, a part-timer is coming in to make now. $5,000 in overtime, that's potential savings of what we are paying now. $6,000 in casual call-in transport. And then there's an iCloud storage that they had budgeted that they would cut, which is $56,246 in potential savings. I mean, it doesn't clearly offset the whole cost, but those are cuts that could be made that are not insurance. Because what we discussed this is to base a position off of savings on an insurance is not really basing a position on savings, because those savings go away. And so we can't base cuts on that, because eventually those people will need to come on the insurance, and then we're going to be facing those costs down the line. So I said, I can't present that and be transparent and honest and saying that's actual savings, because those will come back to bite us. So we need to be, honest and transparent about what we're presenting here. And so the actual savings that we can come up with is $56,000. So will this position be fully funded? No. I mean, it will cause an increase, and we know that. And so that's what if we present this, when we present this, it will be presented that way, that we're being honest and upfront that, hey, here's the benefit, here's what the savings will be, here's the purpose, and so here's with and here's without. And then it will be for the board to decide how you want to move forward with that. That's not a call for me to make. That's not a call for the sheriff to make. That is a call for you as a board to make. And it's for us to present to you in the most transparent way that we can. And we're collaborating the best we can to get to the best solution that we can as far as financially being responsible, to try to get to the best outcome that we can.
And I do want to further elaborate on those cuts,
Yeah.
just because those were additional cuts that were made. So when I presented the budget with the position, we had already made cuts to a lot of those lines. And then after meeting with Candace and Larry, we had made, how do I want to say it? I felt like we had made maybe overly responsible cuts. We cut back to a level of comfort where I felt there was still enough in there. There was still a little bit more than enough in there. So then after one of our more recent meetings, Aaron and I went back and we reevaluated a little more at where we were at this year. Again, and then we trimmed those down a little bit. So they're not there's not as much like fluff. There's a little less wiggle room in them then, because I am kind of, to some extent, I'm playing with numbers that I'm basing it on our trends, and then kind of taking away a service I don't think we're going to need as much of anymore. So, which is part-time staff, right, and overtime. So this is as far cut as I think we can be, where I'm still comfortable. And so there actually is more of a cut than what that spreadsheet shows, because when we presented the initial budget, we had already trimmed before we did that. So we've trimmed more. And I don't think, we're not at a place probably where we can trim anymore. So I wanted to touch on that. And the difference between the two budgets that'll be presented, and Larry might know the exact number, but it's somewhere around $36,000, I believe.
Yeah, I haven't seen your latest.
Okay. So yeah,
We'll have that bottom number. I mean, we'll have the initial number with the 5%, because what the consultant has asked us to do, it won't be a 5% across the board wage increase, but they've asked us to build in a 5% buffer, basically. They believe that a 5% across the board, that'll give us our pool of dollars that will then allow us to back everybody into the new wage scale. So we will address those who are most underpaid first, and then, stage everybody else in for this first year to correct the iniquities. And then next year, put everybody on the new scale. And so that's kind of the method that we're anticipating using with the initial data that we're seeing. And so that 5% pool is going to be built into this budget. And then how we apply that is yet to be determined once we get everything finalized through this process as we're working through it. And so what we went back and did then is we asked every department head to build in a 5% across the board wage increase. Now, that does not mean everyone is getting 5%. That means that's our pool. Those are our dollars that we're going to utilize to implement this study. We now have that built into our budget, which is wonderful. So the initial budget that everyone has now has that 5% built in. So we have that initial with 5% built in. And we have one budget that the sheriff will have that has the 818 position in it. And then we'll have that 5% without the 818. So those are the two versions that we're going to give you, and you'll be able to very clearly see the differences in the bottom line. And then you'll be able to make that determination from there, how you want that to go.
So I guess to continue the discussion, I'm looking for the input from the committee so we can make some of those recommendations. Currently, the sheriff's department budget is about 60% of the tax levy.
Shy.
Correct, yeah.
So we need, as the committee, we also have other agencies that have needs. So I don't want to leave that number and say, this is, the levy has to go all places. So I want to make sure that this committee is looking at this picture. If we want to make a recommendation to the next step, we can do that, but I also want to make sure we're also looking at all the positions and all the offices and everything in this decision-making process. Yes.
As far as tickets, citations and stuff, who sets that amount and where does that money?
So the county ordinances are set by us. The state citations, that's all at the state level.
The surcharges are set by Wisconsin statute.
Yeah. And then how that money is to be divvied is also set by statute.
Yes.
So, we don't get a very large portion of that. It's a relatively small, roughly $20 in citation, probably.
Well, no, more than that. If it's like $200, 50-cent speeding ticket that you issue, you at least get the like $50 base plus part of the penalty surcharge. I think it's, yeah, you're at least getting $50, but that's only 25% of that.
And some of that comes back into like our jail assessment fund,
Right.
stuff like that, yeah.
And this
So
was
it's specified as well.
It's
It doesn't
specified.
just go
It's
in.
all collected through my office
Yeah.
and all programmed and through the maintenance with the statutes. And so there's think of it as buckets on each citation. There might be 10 buckets that money dumps into.
And does the sheriff's department, other than the jail assessment, see any of that money?
Yeah, all of the money I collect that's for the county goes to the general fund, and the jail assessment and surcharge goes to the sheriff's department. I'm not aware of anything else that would be, I think it's just the base goes into the general fund to county, but specifically, as far as I know, the jail surcharge is the only one that would be directly to the sheriff.
Which is specific for certain items in
Yes.
the jail that you can use. It's very specific.
Yes.
Yes, okay.
How much variation do you have in overtime? How much does that go and fluctuate?
I would say it's constantly variable. It's hard to predict, right? Because it's driven by multiple things. It's driven by caseload, it's driven by, sick leave is a big contributor, like if people get sick. Some of that we've reduced somewhat with 12-hour shifts and how we structured the rotations, where we have better coverage now. But it kind of ebbs and flows, and there are things that we can't control, like investigations are those things. If we knock on wood, if we had a homicide, that we could burn through overtime in a hurry on that.
You're inviting trouble, my friend.
Not inviting.
Inviting trouble.
But certain investigations.
It happened last time. We talked about it. And then within 48 hours. we had it. True statement.
But yeah, major investigations, especially like that, where are incredibly manpower, heavy, and so we burn through vacation dollars pretty quick. So we can't, and again, we can't control it. Yeah, sorry, overtime. Yeah.
Any idea, off the top of your head, what that is annually? What percentage is overtime?
I mean, I can tell
Put me on
you,
the spot, yeah.
I can tell you what we've spent so far this year. At least what the last monthly report says, yeah. So it's tracked, we have our own separate line item just for overtime.
Yeah.
We do track it. One component of that is like our traffic grants that we take place, and that, though that overtime does get reimbursed by the state,
Yeah.
by DOT. But, we can also, that's also a number we can throw in there and come up with a better dollar amount too, and get a more accurate number, so. Yeah,
Yeah, thank you.
yeah, it's a trackable number. We do have a separate line for it.
Good.
So, yep.
Cool, thanks.
Yes,
I have a couple questions. If this position were approved, how many officers would be trained to work in court security?
Currently, everybody's cross-trained to work court security.
Okay, I was
Yep.
hoping that was
And
the
then-
answer.
Yep, yeah. And it's honestly, it's been necessary lately, really. We did that, and everybody had an understanding of what it was to do court security. But more recently, we've worked with the courts on kind of giving a more current and up-to-date guidelines on what's expected. And so since we've done that, we've then went and cross-trained all of our patrol staff. And then we have a couple people that work in the jail that are certified law enforcement officers. They've also been cross-trained in it as well. So, which we haven't utilized them for court yet, but we have been utilizing them to help cover transports. So we've been, something I missed earlier, we've been pulling people out of the jail to help cover transports. So, because we do have those two people who are certified law enforcement officers there.
And then my second question is what is the ramifications if not getting the iCloud storage? What would that be used for, and
So,
what are the effects of that?
so the iCloud storage is, right now we struggle with our wearable video storage, and that's what it was for. This is strictly for wearable and squad videos. So right now we struggle with the system and the current servers. I don't know how to best describe this, but it's slow. And it's not like inconvenient slow, it's problematic slow. Part of that, and a big part of that, is due to the volume of video we have. So right now, we currently record pretty much everything that happens in the jail on that system. If my jailers are in contact with an inmate, a camera is running. And so if you think back, depending on how familiar you are with our radio system, a component of that new radio system is updated jail controls and surveillance equipment for the jail. So my thought is that when we get that new system, we'll be able to reduce our amount of video that we're storing from the wearables in the jail by probably 80 to 90%. And that is probably, I'm going to make a guess, educated guess, it's 50% or more of our current storage is jail. So if I can reduce that 50%-ish by 80 to 90%, I think we're going to be in better shape just running the current system we have. So if that answers your question,
Yes.
I think, and if not, maybe we'll have to attack it again in another year. But I think we give it this year and we see how things work. So I think it's going to be better.
Thank you.
So, yeah,
We talked about that, and I think that's a fair plan. I mean,
yeah,
we kind of had that discussion, and it seems logical, and knowing how massive that storage is, I mean, and how much it takes to store all that video, it makes sense.
and another issue with it too is that additional 31,000 we put into the budget for this migration to cloud-based. That's just to get in the first year. And it's gonna be still close to 20,000-ish a year to stay in. So the ongoing cost, if I can avoid the ongoing cost of that too, I mean, it's the way of the world, right? Eventually everything's gonna go, but if I can push it off for a bit, it's gonna save us some money.
your question on overtime, through what?
August 31st, we're at about, well, what the report is 18,796.89. That's what we have on that report that we based it off of our discussion. So
Or, what was that? I'm sorry.
overtime
Okay.
Yeah. thus far.
And that's just the roadside, that's not jail. Because we don't-
Nope, that's just the road.
Just the roadside.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Any questions from the committee? Your thoughts? We want to have Candace just present it in both ways. If we want to make a recommendation to executive and finance, that's up to you at this point.
I'd move to make a motion that we present share with us today with the two views.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you. I think this discussion is important just to see what the options are, what the numbers are, and want to make sure everybody had a good picture of that as we move forward with the budget. Anything else on that? No. Right. Thank you. Anything else on the department activities for the sheriff? Hearing none, the coroner? You have anything for the coroner?
I got the report.
Oh, okay. Who do we have online there? Mike. All right, Mike.
Sorry, I am traveling today and going to pull over here so I can give you guys a quick coroner's report. So office covered 14 calls in the month of August. We had 15 calls in August of last year, so we're down by 1. 5 calls in August of 2022. And as years have trended past, our calls have greatly increased month over month. The 14 cases in August, 4 were respiratory related, 4 were cancer deaths, 2 were heart related. We had 2 that were Alzheimer's dementia related, 1 which is a multi-organ failure, and 1 motorcycle fatality. 11 of the 14 cases were hospice deaths, and all cases were cremations, no autopsies for the month of August. Historically, we're outpacing previous years. At 10 years ago, we were at 64 calls at the year. Year to date, we are at 84 currently now. So still seeing a steady increase in calls. And Jim, just want to reaffirm too, if any questions, comments, concerns, you can reach out to him or myself and we can hopefully get you pointed in the right direction.
Any questions or comments on the coroner? Again, the coroner position is is paid per work position. It's not a salary position. It's paid per piece. I hate to put it that way. It just doesn't, per call. Thank you. That sounds better, yes.
Yeah,
It's a lot better than.
Flows off the tongue.
Oh, well, here we go. So, anything else, Mike? Thank you. I've slaughtered this one up.
Yeah, it's all I got. Wow, thank you.
Yeah, that's all right. Any other questions for the coroner? All right, moving on to the circuit court judge. Circuit court judge today.
Judge has been very busy. So you've heard she's got pleas and sentencings, being transported to the court. She has a lot of activities going on in the courtroom. And today she's not able to be here because she's in a judge's district meeting. So I think that's for 2 days. Other than that, I don't have additional reporting on her behalf.
We have a courtroom security meeting coming up next week on September 10th.
Tuesday.
And where is that held? I didn't remember.
Is that in the courtroom or is it in here?
Lately, we've been doing it in here.
Okay.
I'll have to look at the.
Just FYI to the committee members, that's a very important meeting and it's come a long way.
And we'll have incidents to report on.
Okay.
Unfortunately, we've had multiple incidents to file formal reports on.
Okay. Moving on then to D courts.
Hey, thank you. The fiscally, I think we're probably have exceeded our revenue projections for the year thus far. When I get the reports from Tammy Wheelock for the closed out August, I'll send those to you with the timing of this meeting. I don't have those yet, but the county, the treasurer's office has, the court's money for August. I reconciled, on Tuesday and, took that up there. So as they post the money to the appropriate accounts, buckets, all of them for the state and the county, then they'll be able to produce the revenue reports, and I'll share those with you guys. I've been working a lot, with Tammy Wheelock. She is great up there, the fiscal specialist for the county. So this is a project she and I have been working on for a couple of years, actually, is uniform coding of the revenue accounts. Our ultimate goal is to have them jive with the state director of courts uniform chart of accounts codes. That's a lot of mumbo jumbo, but every year the clerk of court does a very detailed reporting of all expenditures and revenues to the state of Wisconsin, to the director of court's office, and based on that report, is what the state gets, or what the county gets their state aid from the court system for. So the way that the county records its revenue accounts is not in any way coded the same way as the state does. This makes a lot of extra work for me, and it could be done in a way that it is coded the same. And so Tammy and I, this last time we sat down, met in my office. So we could look at the screen of the accounts within my accounting system, which is what the state of Wisconsin, all 72 counties have. And she's like, this is a good system. Like, this is pretty powerful, all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, it's not just, I don't just have a checkbook that I just write a check and we just willy-nilly. There's a whole lot of detail. There's a whole lot of financial stuff that goes into what I do, and that ends up in the treasurer's office and ultimately in the general fund. So we would like to, Tammy and I would like to get those accounts to be coded the same here as what they are with the state, for her purposes and for mine. The challenge in doing that is that if we change all those accounts over now, it's going to zero out. It's going to cause issues because we already have money going in. We have almost a full year of money that's gone in. The challenge next year, when we do it, we got to do it at some point. But it's a hassle at any point because the budget already being done with the numbers, with the codes that the county has historically used. So when Tammy and I need to switch this over in January, because we'd like it in there before Tyler, before the systems get upgraded in the county with the with what they use, the financial office here uses. So that's our goal, is to get it set. But what's going to happen at the first of the year when we do that, it's going to, because the budget's already set for this year with the account codes that you've already used. So then it's going to kind of like zero out those the numbers are all going to be different. Ultimately, you'll be able to see your total, but at some point you've got to convert this. It's just a data conversion thing between our two offices, but we need to do it before, so that it can be programmed into the Tyler system, correct, by the fiscal departments. So she and I are on that, and she's wonderful. Like, just, it's really wonderful to have somebody to work with that is that like capable and understanding of the situation at hand. I can honestly say in 17 years, I've not had that type of relationship with that office up there, with the accounting people. They just didn't get it. And she gets it. So that's so refreshing and so wonderful. So after all of these years of struggling with this stupid report that I have to do every year to the state, finally, after 17 freaking years, on the 18th year, it will be just a little bit easier for me. So hallelujah. And I think it'll make it easier for the county too, because they'll always be able to see exactly in the same terms as what the state looks at it. The county's record will look the same. In some counties, many counties, the clerk of court doesn't do these reports. They give that to the fiscal office. Now, if I gave that to them, I bet you it would have been changed many years ago. because they would see the difficulty that this is, but, you know, whatever, it's gonna happen now. So, and I'm winding down, in my role as the president of the Clerk of Courts Association. The end of the year will be the end of my term. We have office elections coming up next month. And one of the projects that I hope that I'll be able to see through is the work that we've done the last couple of years with the Wisconsin Counties Association. And we have them now as our partner on a major ask to the governor's office for a huge increase in court funding from the state. So the circuit court is a state and county partnership. If you call it a partnership, when one partner only gets like a small amount of the money and the other partner takes all of the rest. But you know, it was many years ago, it was supposed to be more like equal. And it's like the state has done a good job through their surcharges increases and their fee increases on different case filings and all this, that they've gotten up here, but the counties still are down here. So we're trying to level that, not take anything away from the state. It's all about getting more for the county. And so in our ask to the governor's office, we need to have a basis for what have we not been able to do on the county's level because we haven't gotten enough money. Court security is our number one thing. Facilities, security of facilities, and basically facilities management. We don't have enough money coming into the county. We have to do court somewhere. We have to conduct this stuff with all these state people somewhere. But counties had to defer maintenance because it doesn't have enough money. Costs a lot to maintain the courtroom and the systems in the courtroom and all of that kind of stuff. So if we get more money on circuit court support payments, we hope that a large part of that, because they'll all go into the general fund, of course, come in through the court's budget, but to the general fund. And so court security is what we hope will get funded for that. It's kind of like a high level of what's going on there. So eventually counties, I think, will be asked to do like resolutions and support. We're not there yet. But the state director's office of courts, they've asked for a very modest increase because they're not on board with our increase request. So that's where it gives a little like, and so the counties association that's why we're all elected officials for the counties, us clerk of courts. So we developed this partnership with the Wisconsin Counties Association, and we acknowledge the state has different needs than what we have, and the state's needs have been better met because of the funding sources that they've had. And so we're not doing anything to take away from them. We're doing this for us and for our counties. So fingers crossed that some of that comes through for us. I think that's about it for my stuff on county and statewide. So questions?
Questions? You submitted your budget,
A long time ago, like in July or whatever.
right? And that's,
I don't know. I haven't heard anything back. I assume that's good news.
We have some increases built in, mostly it's insurance, small operational increases at this point. And
I'm asking for my health insurance back.
Yeah. And you know, that is an employee's right to have health insurance. And unfortunately, we've had not only Stacy, but several employees that have given up their access to health insurance to make budget in past years. And that's not something that any employee should have to do. And so, no, we are not going to ask people to forego health insurance to make their budget. So that is not something we're going to ask anyone to remove out of their line items. So.
all right, any other questions there for Stacy?
Just comment, like, this goes with anything in the county, like, you cannot budget and make budget off of that health insurance.
No.
So you have to offer health insurance to every single employee regardless. And just going on what Clay was talking about earlier, like, his deputies may be younger, but at some point they could have a family that happens here pretty soon, and that family's gonna need that health insurance. They're not gonna be able to go with their other current insurance they have now. is you're gonna have to give that. So,
Yeah, and you have to look at that. You just have to budget. You can't even think that that might be like, well, are they gonna take it or aren't they gonna take it? They have a right to take it, and, in my budget, I had to cut it because it was either that or cut a person, or part of a person. I run like the lightest staffed office in the state. I'm not gonna cut a person. So I had nothing else to cut. And I have to pay the attorneys that serve people who are indigent in this county. That has to happen. There's nothing in my budget I could control other than said, well, I'll cut my health insurance and go on my husband's. And that was a decision that cost my household a lot of money. And yeah, so whatever. Over it.
Other questions?
My only comment to that is we have to assume that every single employee is gonna take insurance.
Yes,
If they do not, then
that's
that
their,
saves-
that's their choice.
saves money there. We have to just assume
Yeah.
that we have to offer that to them.
Absolutely, and that's how, well, since I've been here, we budget that way.
They don't get anything extra if they don't take the insurance.
No,
They don't get anything.
No.
Whatever, so,
We just have to assume that they're going to.
yeah, it
So our
should just
budget has
be,
to include that.
yes, and it should be just an item that, you know,
every time we budget for a position or a new position or whatever else, we assume family insurance. That's just what we do. It's a placeholder.
Other questions? Comments? All right, register and probate.
All right, in the probate office, gladly to report that we are under budget. So that's a good thing. And as far as our revenues go, we're actually over in revenues. Because there's two of us in the office, we do have time where, our office pays for a lot of guardian ad litem fees, or it comes out of our line items, and we try to recoup that. So anybody who has like a guardianship, there's usually a guardian ad litem that's involved. We've got juvenile cases, there's a guardian ad litem for the children. So in our office, when we're billed, we try to recoup that either from the parents of the children who have cases with us, or also we go to the guardians of like wards. If someone's under guardianship, we try to recoup that money that was billed to us in the court for guardian ad litem fees. So we're trying to stay on top of getting reimbursed, whereas back in several years, when there was only one person in the office, these things, might not have happened. So that's part of our contribution is to the overages in revenue, or we're over in revenue is because we're able to recoup money that's been paid out. And our office is very busy, whether we're creating wills or, up in court. It's just a very busy office. I'm just still happy to be part of it. Any questions of the probate office?
Next question.
Yes.
You were talking about the guardian ad litem fees. Are those basically court ordered for those people to pay them anyway, or are they not ordered to pay them?
Well, if there's a child involved, a child has to have someone that represents them.
Right.
And so that's where the guardian ad litem fees come from, or how they're originated. And they are appointed by the court. So yes,
Like, yeah, they're required to pay those fees. I mean, they're court ordered to pay those.
yes.
you edit the orders. So they edit the orders before they go to the judge to include the reimbursement part. And then they give the orders to me. And then I set up the assessments for the accounts to do the collections on. So we partner on this stuff, but they have to look at each order and determine how it's going to get repaid to the county and put the language in there so that it's in a formal court order signed by the judge, that these people have to reimburse Richland County with payment to the clerk of court within 60 days, or you set up a payment plan, which they do then. They set up the payment plan through us and we monitor that. So this is one of those partnership things that is able to happen because they have two people in their office because I don't run their records. So without them doing the orders, I don't have the stuff to set up the financial accounts on.
They have to supply you the information.
Yes.
Yes, but we work together on that, and in exchange for that, then in exchange for me being the heavy on the collections, they then help us with the quality controls on all of our records, on all of the scans and everything that we do, that then us as a lightly staffed office don't have time to do, and so then they take that. So we have a very cooperative relationship between our two offices, and these guys they're very professional in what they do, so it's kind of like it's like a circuit court team where everybody kind of knows their role, but it's very cohabitative or whatever you call it.
Collaborative.
It's very collaborative, very collaborative. But it takes a total of 5 people between the two offices to make all of this work.
Try to keep up.
Questions for, doesn't Health and Human Services have something with guardian items that the county's gotta take care of? No,
I don't think it would be through there.
they deal with something with guardian items that are appointed that we gotta, I thought we had to take care of.
If it's with, children, also there's the APS worker, Cindy Brownlin, who initiates guardianships. And so we have guardian ad litems guardian ad litem people that are assigned or appointed, actually it's the appropriate word, to those cases, either whether it's a child's case with children's services or if it's through the adult protective service person. Yeah, so both departments deal with guardian ad litems.
They probably help make the initial contacts for them, but it becomes formalized through the court order.
Yeah.
And then collected.
We appoint them through the court.
Yeah, they don't have the authority to just appoint people. The judge.
I feel that, but I thought they were paid for some of that or something.
I
The
don't.
courts.
I don't, well, county pays the guardian ad litem stuff through the circuit court budgets,
Okay.
but then the people have to.
Reimburse that back.
Yeah.
So I remember during the budget stuff, they talked about, we got all these guardian ad litem fees and did that before.
Yeah, I don't know.
They talked, Patrick was talking about that one time. Okay.
They
Questions?
would have court-appointed placements. But the guardian ad litem is a cost of the court for the Supreme Court rules. So I don't know about that.
Questions for register and probate? You've submitted a budget. That's
Yeah, and that's very minimal increase, and that's really due to just the wage. The wage.
all right. Any other questions for register and probate? Anything else you have?
I don't have anything else.
All right. Okay, moving on. District Attorney.
I've got nothing for action today, but might for the next meeting. First up is some informational items to go in our restaurants. You guys have probably seen, and I'll send them to you, I can ship them around. You've probably seen at like a Quick Trip or other public places, you might see hotlines on human trafficking or domestic violence or things like that. We know that, or even in the hospitals, you might see them in hospital bathrooms, in rooms, because we know that victims can't get away from abusers. It's great for us to have a poster outside our victim witness office that says, here's the number, here's the thing. But if you're sitting next to the person who's abusing you, can't really go and put in the number. If you're being trafficked and taken across state lines, you know, your captor will probably take you in, if you're a little kid, into Quick Trip or somewhere, or a teenager, but the bathroom is the only place that you can go by yourself. And so we've gotten a bunch of documents from, through our victim witness supervisor, things that are being implemented across the state from the Office of Victim Services. I can send these to you, but it's just sort of a visual. So we have, this is the hotlines. There are a lot of different hotlines. We used to know there was like the suicide prevention hotline. There used to be, you know, ones that were specific. I think that they've gotten more specific. So like there's a trans hotline for trans individuals who are being trafficked, or for people who are being trafficked for the purposes of employment, right? We have an employer here who gets someone from another country to come here, and then they become exploited. So that's another form of human trafficking. So what we were looking to do, I was going to come here. I don't know if I got to go to property. It's got little stickies on it. I didn't know if I should just stick it up in the bathroom to pretend I didn't know where they came from. But so what we were looking at doing is having the main hotline one. We also have one in Spanish in each of the bathrooms, and that's men and women. I think, and we have then the more specific ones in English and Spanish. We are think so. One is for domestic violence, and they would also go in the men's bathrooms as well. There's one for elder exploitation. There's one for human trafficking. And what we would do on the specific ones is switch them out. So essentially, we would have 4 of these in each bathroom stall, the big numbers, and then the one specifically for domestic violence, and then switch them out. So they would be elder abuse, and then switch them out. So it's sort of a rotating, because we don't, signs always lose their efficacy if there are too many of them. So we were looking to do that. I'm going to scan these in. I'm going to have Andrea scan these in. I can send them to the body so that you can see what they actually look like. But these are, they come from the Office of Crime Victim Services. So this is something that's being used. So anyway, I'll send those around. Perhaps we can talk about that.
So I guess the question.
Yes.
On those, you see those in, hospitals and quick and stuff. I've always wondered with the trafficking one. So if someone is holding you and whatever, what if because they use those bathrooms too. And so they have to be aware that people, oh, sure, the person that I've got control of, sure. Have they found these things to be effective?
Yes.
That's cool. Yep. That's good.
Yep.
So I guess the question about, comes to Candace, does the county have a policy on posting things in rooms that we need to be careful? So we put something up and everybody else puts something up. I'm not sure we.
It used to be you couldn't hang anything on the walls of no property.
Oh, within the county property,
Right.
yeah, we have
Yes.
a policy. but-
Okay, so those are just have. to
I mean,
follow
I
that.
thought about going, I thought you were asking about going and putting them out.
No. These would be in the bathrooms here in this building.
Yeah, we would just have to take it to Public Works.
Okay, so Public Works is.
Okay. So I thought I would just bring that to your
Thank you.
attention.
Put something there.
I agree.
Some advertising for something else.
Absolutely.
Right, yeah. I agree. Right, it's a safety thing.
Right, yeah, exactly. It's a service we provide. Like I said, we have it in Spanish and English. We can get it in any language you want, but those are the 2 primary languages that are used here. So I have that. I have the ordinances. I won't pass them out because we don't have it as actionable today. So once upon a time, we were talking about including 2 ordinances. One is for disorderly conduct with a motor vehicle, and one was for a contempt of court, which we thought would be useful. Clay and I thought it would be useful. We can go through that all again if you want, but we've discussed it before, talked to Wendell. I gave Wendell the statutory language that needs to be used, and then he signed off on the language that I gave him. And then I had to provide for the ordinances, just sort of a little non-legal explanation of what they are. So I have them. Everyone has signed off on them. I will email them out, and perhaps we can take action, at least out of this committee, at the next meeting so we can put that as an actionable item.
Make that an agenda item then.
Yeah, specific actionable item. So we have that. So my monthly budget for the county, I'm under budget as well. We were at 66% of the year, and I'm at 61%. So I'm under that. Always, I can only respond to things. I don't act. Right. We have 3 trials that I'm pretty satisfied are going to go in the next 6 weeks, but right. And a couple of them are multi-day, but we haven't had any in the last month. So we're gonna have more jury trial expenses coming up. that we haven't had, so it all fluctuates. So at least at this point, we're 5% under, my office is 5% under my budget for the year. Speaking of budget, provided the budget for next year. Is it very exciting? No,
It's so exciting.
it's not. I'm down.
She brought in her pie chart.
I did, oh, yeah, oh, wait,
Hold it up.
wait. No, it's not the pie chart, but I will give you
Oh,
my,
okay.
I will give you my prologue though. So for my budget, just to remind us all, I am the only county state-run law office in the county. There are no other law offices. And so my department should be thought of as a law office. County, state, our big brother, the state, actually does pay for, pays for 55% of the operational costs of my office. County pays 46%. And that amount the amount that the state pays for doesn't include the reimbursements that we get for victim services. So that doesn't include that. And since they just talked about dollars, it just doesn't include the fact that they pay for all of our computers and our computers, yes, printer, no, this piece of equipment, yes, this piece of equipment, no. So, and then out of the 46% that the county pays, I only have 7% in my budget that's not salaries and benefits. It's all salaries. It's 93% salaries and benefits. So of that 7%, of course, 7% telephones, transcripts, paper clips, paper service, registration supplies, all that kind of stuff. My budget is less in 25 than 24 because someone didn't take their health insurance. One of our victim witness people, so we're down about $25,000 or so for that. But since that was a victim witness person, we get reimbursements up to like 40% for victim witness stuff. So our revenue, it's not really revenue, it's reimbursement from the state for victim witness, is down about $10,000. So net, we're down $14,000 maybe.
So we went from 217, 200 to 236,108. So actually we went up. The budget went up. The levy amount went up. Yep, because our budgeted revenues went from $30,000 down to $20,000 because of the loss of reimbursement on that. So the levy last year was $217,200, and this year it will be $236,108. But that's also because of the increase in the wage. That's
Right.
really
Right, which was not included when I turned in,
Right.
included when I turned
Right.
in my budget.
right, and that
Right.
adjustment happened.
Right, so that adjustment happened afterwards, so I turned in, so I was under 10.
You were
and
under.
then I was under.
You were, and
The
then
adjustment put us over.
the wage adjustment put you over.
Okay, so that's kind of where we are on, which I don't disagree with, and I will say that my office got clipped with someone had to, or chose to give up their health insurance because one of our staff members was gonna get cut. So I'm glad that we're not doing that anymore because that happened in my office and that was not so long ago.
And that's, just to piggyback
It's a
off of
terrible
that,
reason for a lot of
I
things.
can tell you, I heard it last year,
Yep.
my first year doing this budget, and I heard that over and over and
Mhm.
over.
Yep.
People saying, well, people gave up health insurance because otherwise we were gonna have to cut a person. Or I gave up my health insurance, so I didn't have to cut this, or I needed this more than, and it was awful to hear.
And what it looked like in my office was I've only got 3 staff members in my office, 3 that support 2 attorneys, and we're way understaffed for a whole bunch of reasons, which I care, but I've never come to the committee for that. And one of the staff knew that if she took her insurance, her coworker was going to get fired. That was her decision. I'm not coming to them saying you have to do this. So one coworker, so Clay and I are sitting here and I'm like, if I do this, Clay's getting fired. That's a rough position to be in. Fortunately, we're not in that position anymore. But that's how we got to what we have for this year, not for inappropriate reasons. One of my staff members just determined that the health insurance that she got through here, she had a better option for that.
Yes.
We have, I think I sent out the information to everyone on this committee and others, Candace, everyone. I'm asking for additional position in my office as far as ADA is concerned. The background going back to 1988 is we have an 80% ADA position in my office. So my office is 1.8 prosecutors. That's been the baseline forever and ever. there was an agreement, so what is this, 40 years ago, that the assistant corporation counsel would be a .2 position so that we would have a full-time position because of recruitment and retention problems with having an attorney come out here for only an 80% job. That creates all kinds of recruitment and retention problems. But that's the way it's been for years and years. And we have now gotten to the point where the numbers from the state, they do a weighted caseload analysis, they decide, they say, these are the charges, these are the hours we're giving, allotting to those charges. They pull information from computers, statewide system, and they say, okay, these are the number of prosecutor hours you should have. And do you have the sufficient number of prosecutors to handle that caseload? And this comes up every couple of years. And so the documents, the information that we got back from the state is we are understaffed. We should have 2.32 prosecutors in the office. We have 1.8. So I've gone to the state this year to say, can we get a 0.2? So now I'll have a full-time position.
That's fully funded then by the state?
Fully funded by the state, yep. Yep, fully funded by the state. And so the information I sent, it had no collateral county consequences, financial consequences for that. I mean, so we have to send, whenever we ask for new positions, we also have to send notice to the county that we're asking for new positions, because I ask for 10 new positions, I get them. And then guess what, county? I need a new office. I need more secretaries. I need this, I need that. So we're required. So there's no cost to the county for that. So I've asked for that. Of course, the budget process is incredibly long. If that 20% position was provided, which as I said was less than 50% of how much I'm under, right? Because we're supposed to be at 2.32 or whatever. So I could be asking for another half-time position, but I didn't. It wouldn't be in effect until like October 1st of 2025. So this is nothing fast, nothing quick, nothing anything, but just since the last time we spoke, I sent that information to the state, sent it to you, just thought I'd touch on it. So it only comes down to, for the state, 8 hours a week for the position, 8 hours a week. And then the little bit of vacation time and health insurance is already fully funded, so it's not even going to increase in that. So I think I figured it out. It was going to be about $30,000 for the budget for them to do that. So we'll see if they think they don't care or it's still too much. Okay, we'll see. The other thing that we're working on right now, so CJCC, that's a committee that's required, judges are required to have a whole bunch of different people on it. We all come together, we all talk about our issues and how we can tackle whatever the issue of the day. One thing that we've been talking about a lot is what's called pretrial monitoring. So that's what happens in the period of time between when someone's arrested and when they're put on bond and when a case is concluded. Bond conditions usually include things like no drinks, can't possess, consume alcohol, not go into any taverns, bars, liquor stores, blood, breath, and urine at the request of law enforcement, right? It's a standard condition. But then the question is how those get enforced, how they should get enforced, different things like that. Counties all over the state have different processes for that. La Crosse County has this incredible system called justice sanctions. It's really pretty phenomenal. Smaller counties don't quite have that. Monroe County has this, Iowa County has that. CJCC, one of our public members said, y'all are always talking about pretrial monitoring, which would help the jail, because if we had people who could be monitored, either their alcohol use, because you can get an ankle monitor with alcohol, or their drug use, or put a geo fence that says they can't be at this victim's neighborhood, then we're all more likely to be more comfortable with people being out of the jail. And it provides better public safety, right? You do a $5,000 cash bond. Right now you have conditions of bond. They either sit in jail because they can't post, so they're costing the county money. Or if they do post, we have no idea if they're skulking around these people's houses or drinking or anything. So pretrial services help public safety and help cost. So we had someone from the community who was on CJCC who said, can someone figure out how much this would cost? Like, figure out something, like do something, because it's not happening tomorrow, so start figuring out something. So I've been working with Devin, on looking at pretrial services, different counties, different models, different things. Out of Monroe County, basically, it was the expense of a road patrol officer. Not asking for that, just telling you what CJC is doing, is looking into that. But the other thing we're looking at, a lot of counties use for pretrial monitoring, for alcohol, I think alcohol and drugs, not sure quite how it works, is they have a kiosk. There's a kiosk. It looks like a little ATM machine, and it's somewhere at the courthouse or it's placed somewhere associated with the criminal justice system, and people get a random note on their phone that says you have to come test between this time and that time, and they come in, they put their credit card in, they do the testing, they blow or lick or whatever it is they have to do. I'm getting, listen, I don't know what they do. I get, look, saliva, they do have the things that you suck on. That wasn't just me being mean. You have saliva swabs. I don't know how the kiosk works. Devin and I have someone who is going to come and demonstrate the kiosk, exactly how it works, how people provide their bio information, how it gets paid for, which I know they pay for it, and then how that data comes to the court or the DA's office or law enforcement or what that looks like. So we are looking at that. It's obviously a less expensive option than having like someone doing pretrial services. Overall, pretrial services are the wave of the future, and I have a lot to say about it, but not at this meeting. So we're looking to see how much a kiosk would cost and what we have to do. If all it means is we got to plug it in and have the judge agree to utilize it, then I think that'd be fairly simple to do. So, but I can let you know how that goes. The judge is very interested in pretrial services as well, because we all know how it works in other counties. The last thing I have to report is the reportable incident that occurred at my office last Friday. The short version is there's a guy who's very volatile, emotionally unstable, does not have an accurate view of situations, who very volatile. He had previously spoken with Jen Lau. He was unhappy with something that the judge had done, and he had threatened. Oh, you heard about this because Wally and I were talking about this at one of the meetings. He had said, "I'm going to the judge's house. If she doesn't do something, I'm going to go to the judge's house," and that raised some concern. Well, last Friday, I'm talking to my victim witness people, and some guy comes up the door. He's storming up to the door. That's fine. My very, very nice 22-year-old secretary, excellent customer service, very cute, very smiley, very, very confident, goes up to meet him. His head blows off about the DA and demanding to see the DA, and I want to see the effing DA, and this is all BS. And since I was standing there, I was thinking, I could either go back to my office and let this poor little honey deal with this guy, or I'll just talk to this guy, right? So I went up and I started talking to him, and he's yelling and he's banging on the thing and swearing and all kinds of stuff, and he wants to talk to the DA, and the DA has done this to him, and this is all BS what the DA is doing. And I was talking to him, he's yelling at me about wanting to see the DA, and I was like, well, at least he doesn't know what the DA looks like, because I'm right here. Then he's going into this, and I don't see that. Blah, 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 blah. I'm going to her house. I'm going to go to her house and confront her at her house. And I was like, oh, yeah, because I remembered this meeting. I was like, oh, yeah, do you know where she lives? I think it's a bad idea for you to go, but do you know where she lives? And he's like, yeah, she lives down on, might not know where I live like, but he knows where I live. So I wasn't very excited about him knowing where I lived when he was threatening to go down there. I found out who it was. And he had previously done some other things. I found out he's also previously threatened another attorney in a guardian ad litem action. Found out that he had just been arrested in the jail, out of the jail, then at my office, completely out of control, here in the courthouse. And so,
Then back in the chair.
so we hit the button, we had a little conversation, and then he went back into the jail. So he got arrested for his new behavior. And so that's what it looks like. So if I could put a plug in for a thank you, my office begged for a door to my office for years and years and years. We got a door a couple of years ago, and that is the exact reason we wanted a door. We want to keep the hymns of the world on the other side of the glass. He didn't come rolling in with a gun, but he was so volatile. I mean, he could have pushed my cute little secretary into the wall, hit her head, broke her neck, something like that, just with him being volatile and out of control. So thanks for the door. And that's how we roll here in Richland County. That's all I got.
Okay, questions for the DA?
Yes, you talked about the 2 ordinances. Are those brand new ordinances or do they replace other ordinances?
No, so these are new ordinances. So one of them is the disorderly conduct with a motor vehicle. A lot of other counties have them. We have different specific ordinances like display of power. So if you're at the red light with your friend and chirp the car, right, you could get a display of power, or you could get, this little thing or that little thing, but it doesn't cover all jerky behavior with a vehicle, right? Like we'll have someone who, I know we had this, it was someone who was driving, there's this nice lady who was driving, and someone who is well known to us who's irritated at the lady, so he comes up behind her, and he's getting too close to her, and then he goes into the other lane, and then he goes and pulls in front of her, and then he brakes on her, and then, and then he kind of follows her into the Walmart to confront her. He's just being a jerk with his car, but there's no ticket for hitting your brakes to irritate the person or put the person behind you in danger or rolling up on your car. But it was still, and then the other thing I have is like a harassment, which is a crime. Well, I'm not going to charge him with a crime for this, but there should be something for this kind of behavior, which is inappropriate, right? And it scared this lady. She didn't know who this guy is, and he's doing this stuff, and it scared her. So there should be something that can be used to address this kind of behavior if a citation. Certainly law enforcement has to talk with the people and find out, use their discretion, but so that would be an ordinance that covered that kind of thing. The contempt of court. So what we have quite often is we have bail jumps. They say bail jumps make the world go round, right? So this guy gets arrested. He shows up at my office. He's on a bond, gets out of jail. He's arrested, gets out of jail. He's on a bond, comes to my office, raises his cane, completely out of control, gets arrested for the DC, and then a bail jump because he's on a bond. He's committing a new crime while he's on a bond, right? And so bail jumps are very useful for resolving cases because bail jumps are very, very easy to prove. You're on a bond and you did something. You're on a bond with a no drink, and we catch you drinking or in a bar. They're very easy to prove, so they're very useful for leverage, and they're always used for leverage. But it would be useful to have a citation, so you could reduce, instead of just dismissing a bail jump, right? You get 800 bail jumps. I'm not charging, you charge them out, but someone's not going to be convicted of 800 bail jumps, right? I mean, plus the crimes that they committed. But it would be useful if they got some penalty for that. So you have an ordinance, and so then you can pay, right? So you have a financial obligation that comes from that behavior, right? It's kind of like the jerk act. And so that would be new. It would also be new for things like we have contempt of court. People are really obstreperous in court, but maybe not to the level of charging them with contempt of court for their behavior, because the judge can jump on them and wrap them on the nose, and she has the ability to do a remedial contempt, which means if you're out of control in court, she can have a deputy take you down to jail and have you sit until you're ready to come up and apologize to the court, right? That's called remedial contempt. We also have criminal contempt. I charged someone with a criminal contempt because they brought a brick to a hearing with the court commissioner in the second courtroom, and there wasn't security there. He bought a brick and he was slamming a brick on the table, right? So that was also a DC and criminal and all kinds of things like that. But contempt of court, charge them criminally. So there's some place between doing it criminally and just saying, you know, what you did is okay. So the ordinance is to say, hey, maybe not criminal, but not nothing either. So that's the purpose of that. So it's basically a way to dispose of cases.
And you're gonna send us copies of those. You can send us copies of those along with the posters.
Yep.
Yeah, the posters, that'll give us
Yep.
information for the next meeting. Is that-
There you go.
Yes.
Does that work? Any other questions?
Yeah, one question on the posters, I think they're a great idea.
Okay.
Seeing them, but my question's always been, wouldn't it be easier for people to call 911?
Well, see, what happens is, you would think so, right? Like you're being domestically abused, you're getting beaten, you're getting this, you're getting that, then call 911 when that happens. That's just not the dynamic of domestic violence or human trafficking. Or, I mean, when you have people who are, that it doesn't fit the dynamic, right? If you're in a bar fight, someone punches you in a bar, you're calling 911, right? I don't want to get punched in a bar, I'm calling the cops, right? Someone steals something out of my front yard, you're calling the cops. It's just not the dynamic that we know with elder abuse. Because part of the reason is you think you're still going to be abused. You're afraid, you're scared, you know, 911 right off the bat might not help. One thing that we do is we have people go to passages when they have when they're victim domestic violence charges. We want them to go. Victims of domestic violence usually don't go right away. They don't go with the first thing. They don't go with the second thing, and they might be financially unable to go anywhere. Their kids might be in danger if they just call 911. Sometimes there's a lot of steps that have to be put in place.
So
And
these are just more specific. I mean, for their each and every case, these numbers would be, I could see where they'd be more comfortable that way than
Right.
strictly 911.
Right, so really what this is sort of priming the pump and saying, these are the things that you can do moving forward. 911 is great on a critical incident, but if you're in a domestic violence relationship, every moment is not a critical moment. So, but you still got to get out of it because you don't want to get to a critical moment. So that's sort of what these are, the resources, like how do you work your way into leaving this situation? So.
Any other questions? All right. Okay, moving on. Letter G, emergency management. Mike, are you there? Reference the emergency management grant funding update.
I am here. How is everybody again this morning?
Doing good.
Good. So, emergency management. So, quick, brief budget overview. I don't have the paper right in front of me because I am commuting. I apologize. So, without the 5% negotiated increase, we were about $1,000 under budget going into 2025. Where some of those changes occurred is with the EMPG and EPCA grants. So, those are the grants that fund some general supplies that we use in emergency management, but big time fund the 60-40 share of my salary. So one of the things that was eliminated in the grant is things you can pay for with grant funds is contract services. Those familiar with John Heinen, he is a contract service paid for under that grant. Also, that grant is being reduced by about $3,000 to $5,000 this year. So what we were able to accomplish was for John's contract position to be eliminated effective January 1. And to roll those funds back into hiring him as a full-time county employee or transitioning him to that deputy director role in January, utilizing the same grant funds. So we shouldn't see a major change in Fund 10 as it pertains to salaries and other things. It's just a matter of where that money is coming from the grant, if that makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Another way I was able to reduce budget this year for emergency management is proposing the shared cost vehicle between emergency management and EMS. This eventually will be a 24/7 staff vehicle in the county to respond for EMS calls, paramedic intercepts once we do upgrade to paramedic, as well as emergency management incidents, as well as other incident support services, hazmat, and a multitude of other things. I think it's going to be an important resource in the county, especially as we continue to develop relationships with other departments and other agencies and being called on more and more to assist them in their times of need. So we were able to eliminate some money that way by eliminating a capital replacement cost for the previous emergency management pickup truck. Also, we have traditionally shared costs between EMS and emergency management for phones, electricity, that type of things. We share the same building, so, and we'll talk about that in a upcoming item, but I wanted to continue that and make sure that we're approaching things as fiscally responsible as we can.
Okay, Candace, any questions, any comments on that budget that you put in?
No, you know, we're reevaluating, and John will still not, there won't be any increase. We're gonna keep those hours still underneath the threshold for benefits and things like that, so that there won't be any increase to those items, so that budget won't increase.
Okay.
So when he's saying, you know, we're bringing John over, it's just to follow the guidelines of the grant, so we can maximize that funding without causing any increase. It's just the change in the grant. So we switched things up as we needed to do in order to maintain that status quo.
Okay, any questions? Any? Mike, anything else on that until we get to the next topics?
No, nothing else on that particularly. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Item H, PSAP and GIS grants. I see they got submitted, haven't heard anything back.
We submitted for the 2025 and we have not received, and we also submitted our funding request for the 2023 and have not received that funding either.
Okay. Some follow-up on that too, so, all right. Radio tower project. Does you have any questions? I'm sorry, any questions on the PSAP grant project? Okay. Radio tower project. Where to start?
Barb, do you want to go or do you want me to go?
Sure, I can. We are moving forward with Viola. The road's been completed by highway, and Westport, the road's been completed by highway. So now we're getting ready to start building the towers at those two facilities. They're building also in Gotham and help me out. There's one more that we're starting on. There's one more that we're starting on, and I'm sorry, it's drawn. What was that?
Keysville?
Yes, Keysville, thank you. We are still having difficulty with US Cellular. I've been in contact with them several times, requested meetings. They have not met their legal obligation to expedite the contracts for the city. We're still waiting on hearing back from them. We are also, Boaz, we have a contract. We haven't signed that because it's US Cellular, the same as the city. The last one is Yuba, and we are looking at all of our alternatives for Yuba. Because that site, there are some contractual problems with.
Else on that? I guess the topic I want to make sure the committee knows is there are payment steps throughout this process, and because of where the project is, those payment steps didn't happen. So that basically means that, and correct me if I get this numbers wrong here. As the money that we borrowed earns interest, if we don't make payments on it, we have to give that interest money back. So we're not losing the pot. We are losing any interest that we gained because we couldn't get some of these time limits to hit. That's unfortunate because we could have used that interest for equipment, but if we can't write the checks to do that because the things aren't in other snags and other delays, we don't want to pay people that things haven't been done on. So that's kind of the balance of what we're setting.
So from what I've been told, and the conversations that we've had with the borrowing company, we had 18 months to spend the money. And throughout that 18 months, there were specific dates by which certain pots of money needed to be spent. The first one, I believe, was June, and we June or August, we missed that date where we had to have $600,000 spent. We clearly didn't make that one. And there was a next benchmark where we had to have dollars spent. We didn't make that one. And so we have something that is called then arbitrage, which means we have to pay back then any interest above what we should have been earning because we didn't spend down that money. So any money that should have been left, any interest that we earned on the money that should have been there, we can retain. But anything that is above that amount, we then will have to return to the lending service. Before Jeff departed, he and Derek sat in on a call, and Larry, you were part of that as well. No, you weren't. Okay, you've had discussions. And so they will calculate the arbitrage for us. They will tell us how much we need to return to them. They said this is not uncommon in projects like this. I think had we known or had different people kind of been part of the initial conversations, rarely do projects like this end on time. It probably was not a wise idea to take funding and not have tax implications and then have to deal with arbitrage because 9 times out of 10, you're not going to end on time. But it is what it is now. So we'll deal with it as it comes. And so, we're trying to get things paid. But again, as Bob said, it's not wise to put out hundreds of thousands of dollars before jobs are done. And so we're, doing the best that we can to keep things moving and be communicating with people and saying, hey, we got to move along. But, we're dealing with that as we can now. Larry and I and Derek are in communication on those things, and it's all we can do.
And we did make a $500,000 payment this week.
I did see that, and I was really happy when I signed that invoice. I wanted to do cartwheels because that's good. That's getting us moving on that goal there. So.
So I want the committee to be informed on that. Yes.
We've been, and I'll say Barb especially, has been very vocal about the timelines that we have. It's not that we haven't been, where the issue comes in, and I think it's, as we alluded to, it's a thing that runs with large construction projects, right? If we could find a hiccup or a hurdle in the project, I think we found it. So that's what's been setting us back on these.
And the state set to 18 months for us because we had over 40% of equipment in this project. So we didn't have a choice in it if we wanted, and because of the fact that we went for some non-taxable borrowing, which is lower interest rate borrowing. So they set the guidelines and we had over 40% equipment. So we had to go with 18 months because of the percentage of equipment in this project. So that was dictated. So it wasn't like we picked our project dates and we didn't hit it. The state dictated to us. They were really unrealistic to begin with, but the funding mechanism to get low interest loans, that's the funding mechanism. So we had to follow that route in order to get the low interest loans.
And looking back, if different people maybe were at the table when those discussions happened, we would have, I'm just overly conservative financially. I would have probably said, I wouldn't advise doing that, but it better be better to pay interest and knowing that we're probably not going to meet those benchmarks, but I wasn't here, we weren't here, and it is what it is. So again, we deal with it. We'll figure it out. It's not the end of the world. And we'll make those adjustments as needed. But I will say, I came into this project and I can remember the discussions over and over and over and the struggles just trying to meet the coverage that was promised in this project because of our terrain. And that really was a challenge. And, I can say that this team worked extremely hard to deliver on that coverage. And I think that really is what put this behind. And then the weather this year. The weather this year has really, we were finally ready to construct and it rained and rained and rained and they couldn't kick off construction. So I think we're really moving and shaking now, which is great. If we can just get US Cellular to play ball, we'll be really doing well. So.
Other questions from the committee? Just want to make sure you're caught up.
What exactly is the constraint?
Start with.
They lease through a leasing company called Pyramid. And so not only are we working with US Cellular, we have to work with their leasing company. And that adds a layer of red tape that we have to navigate.
So in years gone by, when we, sheriff's department, when we leased, everything was directed directly through US Cellular. We had a
They won't-
question, we had a US Cellular contact, public service contact, we would call them, they would take care of it. Probably at least 10 years ago, US Cellular put all that services out, contracted it out to another company called Pyramid. And they just pretty much wash their hands.
And that's pretty much it. They just, you call them and you talk to Pyramid.
Right.
And so.
I guess I would suggest too, if you want more of an in-depth conversation on that, we have that offline.
Sure, yeah, no, sure, I know, yeah,
That's
that's a lot, you know. That's all. Thank you.
All right, other questions on the radio tower project? Hearing none, moving on to item J, mapping radio systems. Abby covered most of that. And squad updates, anything on the squad updates?
Not really. We should have a squad going in the next couple of weeks. The last squad that we purchased for this year should be going in the next few weeks to be upfitted and then put out into service. That's really all I have for that.
Okay, so I guess my question here is if we're also looking at an additional deputy that would do all mainly court security, is this, what other equipment? Is this an extra squad?
So good question. Because they, how do I want to describe this? Because the person, it's not going to be a single person dedicated to court security.
Right.
I'm not going to go and purchase another squad. In a sense, we're going to hold back a squad car. So one of the squads we're looking at getting rid of, one of those ones that's around 100,000 miles, we're just going to keep a little bit longer. Eventually it's going to get replaced, right?
Okay.
But it's just going to be, we're going to hold one extra in our rotation.
So that's an added cost.
It is an added cost, yeah.
Having this person.
So it's
Okay.
not, we're going to hold one back. And eventually that one will need to be replaced.
Okay.
So yeah, there is an added cost in that. But it's not, we're not purchasing one new now for that person.
Okay. Well, that's something I think we need to make sure that we know. We have a full picture on what those I don't want to say add-ons, but those requirements are.
Yep.
When you increase that. Okay. Any other questions on that from the committee? Okay, moving on, approval of monthly invoices. Everybody's had a chance to look at that. Any questions on the invoices? From the committee? Hearing none, looking for a motion to approve the monthly invoices. Gary for motion. Julie seconds. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right. We'll approve to pay the invoices. Item number 8, discussion and possible action of sale of sheriff's surplus firearms. Gone over this a few times, trying to move these firearms. I guess you have an opinion on that, and I think we may have a solution.
Well, I think Sheriff emailed Mike Wendell. Mike and I talked about this yesterday, and we think that just going ahead and doing it in-house with the form that the sheriff has found is okay. Just doing it direct is kind of how we've decided that we want to go, as long as this committee recommends it and that the county board approves of it.
So under the surplus property, there is a surplus property policy that we have.
Yeah.
And the county clerk shall be advised disposition of any surplus property. Committees are encouraged to liquidate surplus county property in order to conserve space and utilize it in the fullest value. Liquidation surplus property, which the department supervises, supervising committee estimates as a market value of more than $1,000 for that item be approved by the county board. surplus equipment must be offered by email to other county departments. I don't think these firearms are gonna go to other county departments. I think that's a little silly.
Yeah.
At no cost. If no county department has use for the surplus, then it is liquidated by the supervising committee at the best means possible. The proceeds from these sales of surplus county property shall be deposited into the general fund. So it is at this point, my opinion of this, that Clay currently has 3 or 4 firearms. They're estimated at $250. Those 3 or 4 are under $1,000. So I don't think it needs to go anywhere other than Clay take care of it. And this committee saying, okay.
Well, what Michael Wendell, his opinion is that we need to get a resolution on the books for this type of transfer for a couple of reasons. We're dealing with a firearm, number one. So we probably should have on record how we're going to deal with dispensing of firearms.
Okay.
And just have a process outlined of what we're gonna do and how we're going to do it and have it approved at some sort of level.
What level are we talking? This level or county board level?
Well, I think he would prefer it if you make a recommendation and then the board approves it.
Okay.
Just so that we have it on the books and this is our process going forward and it's in writing somewhere.
Okay.
I think is what he's saying. I think we're in agreement that, yep, Clay, we can use the form. Clay can, give first, because we don't want to treat this is not like selling a office chair. It's a weapon. So, I mean, we want to make sure we know they're licensed. We know that they know how to handle a weapon. This seems appropriate. It's, so I think that's kind of where we want to make sure that we're protecting ourselves, that we know that it's going to a former deputy within the sheriff's office, those sorts of things, that we're outlining appropriate parameters for the sale.
Who did these firearms?
So, we've had them. I've been slowly replacing, like, for a year, I've been replacing these rifles because most of them are over 20 years old. And so I've just been slowly replacing them. So now I have a small surplus of them. My thought was, and this is another reason probably to take it to resolution. My thought was, can I sell these surplus ones, some of these surplus ones, put the money back into my new equipment and then purchase more and finish out this transition, right? So right now the current language says the money goes into the general fund. So, I would like it to go into new equipment. If it goes into general fund, I guess that's okay too. But, it would be nice to have it roll into new equipment and then I can reuse some of those funds to purchase the rest of the rifles I need.
Are some of the deputies buying their own, or like yourself, can you buy your own and not accept these, or?
We have in the past let deputies carry their own rifles. Generally, they don't. Generally, they just take the department issued weapon and that's that. Yep. Yeah.
So the two articles.
Are you going through an FFL?
I think we're just gonna use the form and do it in-house.
What's that form?
It's
I've
an
never
ATF,
seen that.
it's an ATF form for private sale of firearms.
Which other counties?
Yeah, and when I was talking to other sheriff's offices about what they do with it, this was actually what Marathon County told me. They reached out to the ATF and the ATF told them to use this form.
What I just say, like, or the FL, or that's one thing I'm familiar with, which is what you have.
Yeah.
It's just that if they get those firearms at some point in time, I totally agree that they could have them, but at some point, maybe they sell those rifles down the line.
Yeah.
And it gets in the hands of somebody else. And right now, Wisconsin doesn't require you to go through an FFL to sell a firearm.
Yeah, not private.
What is an FFL?
Federal Firearms License.
Thank you. So I'm sure everybody knows.
So, that could end up in the hands of somebody else and then that firearm be used in a wrong way. And then that comes back on to us when they run those numbers or something, and it comes back that it was sheriff's department, and then that gets out there and we're a contributing factor to something, even though we did.
So the only way we can avoid that is by destroying the weapons. That's
But-
the only way we can avoid it.
But what I'm just getting
Yeah.
at is that we legally turn that firearm over to somebody, like there's a legal form
Yeah,
that we turn that over to them. Like if I have a firearm now and I give it to you and you took that firearm and you did something bad with it, they're gonna come back, you guys are gonna look at all that information. Yeah, they're gonna say that I wrongfully did it and I contributed to that. So that's where if we can eliminate that, at least the background check was done, that person could legally have done something and I got rid of that firearm, correct?
well, I can tell you that, for an FFL to sell a weapon to a law enforcement officer, they do not need to do a background check. And those forms never go to the ATF. There's no record of that. The forms themselves stay with the licensed dealer. Unless the licensed dealer passes, in which case then they need to be transferred to whoever the next owner of that license is, if it's a business, right? Or directly back to the ATF to be put in a file with a whole bunch of paper records because there's no digital records of firearms.
So having the department, the sheriff's department do the form is a better accuracy of those forms because we retain forms
We would
for
retain.
however long, where an FFL will keep it in his file drawer, and if something happens to that office,
Burns down.
there's nothing. So I guess from that perspective, I'd rather see the county do the form itself, knowing that we maintain that record.
But to Carrie's point, if the form is kept in the sheriff's department and never transferred to ATF, they don't know of the transfer. So when the gun gets, the serial number or whatever gets ran, it's gonna still come back as owned by the county then, correct?
It will too if it's transferred by.
Yeah, but even if even if it goes to an FFL, it doesn't go to the vet. They don't get, it doesn't get updated. If there's a crime committed, that agency is gonna go to that FFL and say, I need to see your records.
The record is held by the dealer. It does not go to the ATF. Unless that license is closed and disposed of, and then all the records go to the ATF.
Okay, so question. So let's say this weapon shows up, there was mass shooting yesterday. That weapon is registered to the sheriff's office. So they call and they say, we have this weapon that was used to commit this crime. And they call you up and they say, do you have the record for this weapon? And you say, yes, I do. Here's who.
It was transferred to
Yep.
X.
So then
Yep.
we can prove that, and then our hands are clean because we can prove that it was transferred ownership to said person on said date.
Correct.
And that's the
Yeah.
purpose of the form.
Yeah.
On a legal document. I just wanna make sure that.
That's what I'm asking too. Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Doesn't seem like there's much value on these guns. What are they?
They're 20 some year old Bushmaster XM15s. They're pretty basic. I'm sure you're familiar with a basic AR-15, plastic handguard, plastic stock, A2's front sight post. So there's not going to be any optics on them. There's not going to be any lights. Well, there might be lights on them because there's really no value to those lights anymore.
5.56.
Yep, all 5.56. A lot of them have a patch of surface rust on the barrel from riding in a squad car with somebody sitting there like this holding them.
I just think about cheap for them, so now I know.
So I contacted Top Pack Defense, which is probably one of our most used vendors. And I talked with him about price, and he had recently done a similar deal with Adams County where they purchased a bunch of new firearms from them. And then they gave them trade value for their old rifles. He said he gave them $400 a rifle. Those rifles came with optics, slings, lights, a lot of the accessories that you would have on them. So he when he gave me a value, he said $250 to $300. I said a lot of them have a patch of surface rust on the barrel, and he said, yeah, probably $250.
Does the county have any 7.62? They just so much longer range.
We do. We have a couple bolt actions. Yep, we do, but not in a semi-automatic.
So the question at this point then is, does this committee want to have an ordinance created that would then be, I have to go to county board, or not an ordinance, a resolution that would almost have to go to county board
So
then.
it'd be creating a policy.
Yeah, creating a policy,
I would like that resolution where Clay doesn't have to go through this every time. He knows exactly how to get rid of it.
Okay. Clay, you're already working on something? You have-
I started a draft resolution this morning, but I will, I'll wrap that up early next week and then kind of run it through Michael and see what he thinks, because it's probably a little more complicated language than a normal resolution.
So is this committee, okay, tabling this till the next meeting, you have a resolution, and then we present that to the county board? Is the plan you'd like to see? Is that good?
Make sure you include that paperwork in there too.
Yes.
And that the money will go back into your equipment.
New equipment fund?
Let's make sure that gets in there.
Okay, so the general fund, it would go back to this equipment?
So that's the change just for sheriff's department or?
Just for the firearms?
Just for fire.
Firearms specifically.
Yeah, okay.
We can have that discussion when we see the ordinance, but let's get it pre-planned the best we can. Does that work? Any discussion or questions? All right, then we're gonna table this until we see that ordinance at the next meeting. All right. Item number 10, discussion and possible action. Approval of amendments, Richland County Sheriff's Ordinance 89.7. I would like to table this. I know. Is that table time? I've had a little discussion, with Attorney Wendell and Clay on this, but because of some health things that came up, we didn't complete that, so I would like to table that at this point, and we'll move on with it. All right, item 11, possible action, approval of this, decommission and sale of emergency management vehicle.
Hello again. So in 2003, county government received a FEMA grant, an anti-terrorism grant, to purchase the green F-250 we currently have now. That's the vehicle I was using as my command and administration vehicle when I had first started. I had noticed that it died about 3 times going to emergency calls in my month using it. And last call it went on, one of the rear rims actually fell apart due to advanced stages of rust and decay. Looking further at the vehicle, it is a first generation 6.0 liter Power Stroke diesel truck, in which just over 100,000 miles will soonly require probably $15,000 to $20,000 worth of engine work, to assure that we don't blow head gaskets and studs and things of that nature. Also, the floorboard is rusted through in a few areas. There's quite a bit of rust into the frame of the vehicle. And lastly, but not leastly, and this is more of a personal comfort thing, it does rain inside of the cab. So because this was purchased on a FEMA grant, what we'll need from the committee is to approve it as a depreciated asset, and one in which we are not going to continue to maintain, so it can be sold for surplus.
Okay, so so we need action, we need approval to decommission it.
Correct.
It has to go to county board.
I'll toss that back to Mr. Wendell. I'm not 100% certain on that. From my understanding, the committee that oversees emergency management can make that determination.
That was my
I
understanding.
have not been able to find any further legalities on that. But I did, in your packet, you will see the original resolution in which it was purchased.
And I was part of that 2003 funding. It's scary to say, but yes, I was. So I guess at this point, then we would need a motion from this committee to decommission this vehicle so that it then is released from the grant. The purpose of the federal grant is you have to report all the equipment, what you do with it until end of life. And we would need some documentation saying that this is end of life, it's done and over with. Chad, I have a motion from Chad to.
And if I can say one more thing on this as well. Currently what the plan is for surplus is we have 2 other surplus former sheriff's vehicles that were previously admin vehicles for EMS. So the hopes is by determining that this asset has lived its life, as well as selling those other 2 vehicles and the ambulance, a surplus ambulance we have currently, that all 3 of the admin vehicles that are being sold would be replaced with 1 shared vehicle, and that would be the next agenda item. So just to put the pieces together.
All right, so in this case, we're looking to decommission and sell the 2024 F-250. I have a motion from Chad to accept that. I'm looking for a second.
Is it
Is
2004, sir?
2004, I'm sorry. Yes, that would be bad. 2004. Give a second, Gary. Any further discussion? Any idea what the value of this and sale is?
I would anticipate to see about $5,000 on auction for this vehicle.
Well, more than I thought, so. Okay, so if it's over 1,000, do we need to post this out to all the other departments? And do we need to go through that process before we sell it? Well, first of all, we'll approve the commission and sell it, but.
Well, from my understanding from the FEMA terrorism grant is that we would not be able to reutilize this asset within the county government.
Right, that was my understanding, so I make sure. All right, so we have a motion second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? All right, motion is carried to decommission that 2024 vehicle.
Thank you.
Next. Replacement vehicle with EMS, number 12.
Yes, sir. So, again, we are trying to, instead of replacing two vehicles, we're going to replace with one. So what you'll have before you in your packet is a leasing agreement that I received from Philback Chevrolet in Boscobel in regards to a new pickup truck. What this pickup truck is going to do is it's going to have EMS response capabilities, including once we upgrade to the paramedic level, this will be our paramedic intercept vehicle as well. So we can provide paramedic level intercept services throughout the county to any services that may need it, especially those in the areas that we cover EMS wise. It'll offer some incident command support services on that platform, as well as for emergency management. There are a few pieces of technology that'll be on that vehicle to allow emergency management to us to be able to effectively start on incidents. For example, the hazmat spill we recently had. Unfortunately, in the back of the Caprice, I was very limited of what type of damming and diking equipment I had available to me for the initial spill. But this will allow both emergency management, EMS, and the coroner's office to be supported on one platform. The hope is within my strategic plan within the next 12 to, I want to say 18 months, that this vehicle will be staffed by a captain or higher 24/7. And that way we'll have an available on-call emergency manager, chief, paramedic, all of those things available in the county, ready to go, ready to respond to whatever need there is. So with that leasing agreement, obviously we didn't have the funds to be able to buy this thing outright. The initial leasing agreement was, I believe, about $70,000, which kind of limited what type of equipment we would be able to put on it, and it really wouldn't be able to be the vehicle we need to last us a good 7 to 10 years. I don't know if Kim Clark is in the room there or she's online. But if not, the Richland County Ambulance Association, their last meeting, they're in the process of disbanding so we can reestablish a new association that includes all of our members in the ambulance service. But the Ambulance Association has committed a $28,000 donation to the upfitting and equipment on this vehicle. So the shared cost that Fund 10 and Fund 51 will be sharing is just that lease payment that you guys see there, a little less than $1,100 a month. Fund 51 and Fund 10 will both pay half of that every month. And the association is going to cover all other associated costs with lights, equipment, all of that with their donation.
Okay, so for the committee to understand, I don't think the county has another leased vehicle. This is the first time we've done this. I don't know any other county, other agencies or departments.
Right now, the highway shop has some leases.
They do, okay,
Yeah.
I didn't realize
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
All right,
They do some leasing of equipment and various things, yeah.
okay, that one I was not
Yeah.
familiar with, so. What is this is a contract, so it's gonna have to go through the county board.
Correct. So I've got tentative interest from executive finance to say that yes, they would be willing to share the cost of the vehicle if public safety would be willing to share the cost between, again, Fund 10 and Fund 51. which would mean at the end of this month, I would bring that to county board saying both committees have tentatively said, yes, we support this. Joint ambulance committee supports it as well.
So I'll be looking then for a motion to approve and move this forward to executive and finance. If this committee so wishes. I have a motion from Julie, looking for a second. Craig seconds, any other discussion?
One other thing too, I just want to share on this because of the donation from the Richland County Ambulance Association. We want to memorialize the association and all of those members that have contributed so much to us over the years. So the rear tailgate of this truck will have a vinyl wrap on it, saying that this truck is made possible to be part of Richland County Ambulance Association, all those members that have served our community. So.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. All right, we can move that on to executive finance, which I think is already said okay. So it's
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Item number 13, I wish I would have seen this earlier. I would have done it in your reports. I apologize for you having to sit so long. So resolution celebrating the Richland County citizen jurors. Is that yours?
Yes, thank you. September is Jury Appreciation Month in the state of Wisconsin. Each year I try to do something. I try to do something different than I did the year before, kind of mix it up. This year I'm asking the county board to adopt a resolution of appreciation for the citizen jurors who serve our court here in Richland County.
So this would be going directly to county board at this point from this committee. Looking for a motion to move this forward to county board. Motion from Chad, looking for a second from Julie. Any further discussion? Thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you for
Great idea. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion is carried.
And what's the date for the county board meeting? The third Tuesday, right?
17th sounds right.
17.
Okay, and is it 7 PM and here in this room? Okay.
Okay. Item number 14, correspondence. I don't have any. Anything else correspondence wise? Anybody else received anything at this point? No? Okay. Future agenda items. Anybody have a future agenda item you want brought up? Hearing none, moving on to adjournment. Looking for motion to adjourn. All right. Gary and Julie, motion to adjourn. All in favor, say aye. Have a great time at the fair.
Thank you.
Thank you. Additional costs for that squad. You know what? I